The episode begins with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy walking together in the street of Gotham. While they were walking, the two recalled how they used to be known as the city's bodyguards, called the Sirens. A year before, they went on a mission with Catwoman into the sewers to find the Enchantress. Oracle tells them over the intercom not to make any noise to avoid waking up the Enchantress skeleton army. The Sirens found the Enchantress body. That's when Catwoman opened up that they were there to recover the diamond on the Enchantress neck, which holds a demon. While the trio were arguing, the Enchantress woke up from her slumber and challenged the girls, waking up her army of skeletons to attack the Sirens. The girls fought back, but unfortunately, they were overpowered and captured by the Enchantress army. At that point, Catwoman was able to steal the necklace from the Enchantress and ran away, also bringing an end to the Sirens. Back to the present, Harley and Ivy were still chatting when they ran into the Riddler and Clock King. They ridiculed Harley and Ivy because they don't go out anymore, and this pissed Harley. However, Harley and Ivy went back to their apartment and watched the TV show while having dinner on the bed. Lois Lane was on the show talking about opening a grand museum in Metropolis, in honor of Superman and his accomplishments. Just then, Harley suggested to Ivy that they attend the event. Ivy was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed after much pleading from Harley. They got to Metropolis and went straight to the gala. And just then Harley and Ivy bumped into Bruce Wayne. He welcomed them and introduced his girlfriend Lena Luthor, who is Lex Luthor's sister, to them. Lois Lane then took to the stand and introduced Lena Luthor as the benefactor of the museum. Lena was going to unveil the most cherished Superman artifact. However, Harley was already thinking about stealing the artifact. Meanwhile, Superman was at the picture booth when he heard a cry for help and quickly went to the rescue. However, he discovered the robots had already done the job and he was no longer needed. At that moment, the robots scanned Harley and Ivy and discovered they had no invitation cards. They were kicked out of the museum and landed on a mattress. This pissed Harley even more, and she made up her mind to break in and steal the Superman's artifact. Just then they spotted the acrobats to perform, and they hijacked their uniforms. Harley and Ivy then went back into the museum dressed as the acrobats. They began to swing themselves through the hanging silks till they reached the artifact. However, just as Harley took the artifact, they were confronted by the robots. The two began to swing around the silks to escape. They landed on the stage while the crowd applauded them. Lena then unveiled the artifact, which was the cloth Superman was wrapped in when he first arrived on Earth. Harley and Ivy went back to the hotel and were making out. Just then they received a package with an invite from Lena Luthor to meet at a hotel. On getting there, Harley and Ivy saw Lena wearing the diamond necklace of the Enchantress which held a demon, and they refused to trust Lena. However, Lena tells them she bought the necklace from Catwoman. She also tells them her goal is to make Metropolis the perfect city. She asked Ivy what about her thoughts on the green space and what she would do about it. Ivy began to release a lot of vines around the building. Unfortunately, the vine knocked off the diamond from Lena's neck and released the demon, Elicipso. Harley was quick to cut off its head from out of nowhere. Just then, Superman showed up just to find out there was no trouble, and he became sober. Harley went to have a chat with him. He tells her how he wasn't needed anymore and the museum dedicated to him was kind of his tomb and he was becoming a relic. Harley then tells him to think more about himself and perhaps go on a vacation. Superman bought the idea and decided to go sabbatical as Clark Kent. Afterwards, Ivy tells Harley she was given an offer to run the city's greenery. They both decided to stay and move into Metropolis. Unbeknownst to them, they were being monitored from outer space by Brainiac. Harley surprised Ivy by showing her their newly furnished hotel room. Ivy fell in love with the room immediately, and while they were about to get cozy, they heard a knock on the door. Harley went to answer and King Shark was standing right there. He explained to Harley and Ivy that he had a date and needed someone to look after his kids, who were a finful. Harley and Ivy realized their honeymoon was ruined. Ivy tells Harley she would be going to meet Lena at the university, leaving Harley to babysit the Shark kids. Ivy met Lena at the university. She introduced Ivy to the dean, Dr. Jason Woodrue. Ivy freaked out as soon as she saw him. Turns out the two knew each other. Lena ran after Ivy asking about what just happened. Since she had done a lot to arrange the meeting, Ivy apologized and tells Lena she and Jason had a complicated history which she doesn't want to remember. However, Lena tells her to forget about the past and move forward as she was now a different person. Meanwhile, Harley was having a hard time with babysitting. She tricked the kids into a room and shut the door. Just then she got a call from Lena who was calling to check on her and also invited her to a birthday party. Meanwhile, Ivy made her way to Woodrue class. She had a flashback of when she was still his student and used to be called Pamela. It turns out they both were in a secret love affair. Ivy approached Woodrue after the class. He apologized to Ivy for how things ended between them. However, Ivy waved it off and offered to make a fresh start. He happily offered to take Ivy on a tour around the university starting with the lab, and she agreed as she had other plans towards him. Harley arrived at the party venue with the Shark kids and was stunned at the elegance. She quickly called Ivy and dropped a message, telling her to come down to the Vincent Edge Club. Just then, She bumped into Lena, thanked her for the invitation to the party. She also met Bane and his girlfriend, who turned out to be the host, celebrating their adopted kid's birthday. Bane then invited Harley to join the club, but first she has to be approved by the owner named Vincent. Meanwhile, Ivy and Woodrue arrived at the lab. Then she remembered how she and Woodrue made out in the lab, after which she showed him her invention. She created a half-plant, half-human by infusing the DNA of a human into the plant. It was immune to any kind of poison, and she named it Frank. Woodrue was stunned at the invention, but soon began to grow selfish. He wanted to reveal Frank as his creation, which would get him the grant and also make him a billionaire. Ivy wasn't ready to give in to his thoughts, and they both began to pull each other for the plant. In the process, Ivy fell into a pile of poisonous chemicals. Woodrue ran out and shut the door. Ivy was trapped in the poison and soon realized Frank was immune to the poison. Then she injected herself with the serum, and that's how she became Poison Ivy. Back to the present, Jason led Ivy into the lab, and at that moment, Ivy attacked him and shut the exits from letting him escape. She then reminded him about how he left her to die, but it didn't turn out as he expected. Jason pleaded with Ivy to spare his life, but instead she tells him she would give him the same chance he gave her. Ivy began to scatter the poisonous chemicals around the lab and allowed him to be infected with the poison. She got out of the lab and listened to Harley's message, then she heads down to the Vincent Club. Meanwhile, the kid sharks had turned the party into a blood hunt, as they were tearing people's hands and limbs. The animal control arrived at that moment and tranquilized the sharks. Harley picked up a bat as she fought the animal control. Ivy also walked in at that moment. Harley and Ivy went back to the hotel, and after having a little chat they started to make out. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the poison infected Woodrue, and he was transforming into a new monster. Stay tuned for more episodes of Harley Quinn on its mythical, and subscribe to this channel for more mind-blowing recaps like this. Thanks for watching.